name is Galib Katra, and I'll be moderating today's Fields of the Future speaker series, exploring the circular economy. Just a little bit about me. I'm an environmental policy and protection specialist with the US federal government, working currently for the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, on environmental protection for climate-driven mitigation projects. I've also analyzed for the federal government the environmental impacts of fishery management and endangered species, as well as airport, rail, and urban development projects on the East Coast. I'm very pleased and excited to introduce to you our speaker for today, Nures Kara. Nures is the Senior Environmental Manager for Schnitzer Steel Canada Limited. Schnitzer Steel rebranded just last month to Radius Recycling. Nures has been with Radius for 14 years and oversees all environmental management and land use matters. Prior to joining Radius, Nures was the environmental manager for the Vancouver Fraser Ports Authority for over a decade, responsible for administrating the port's environmental programs within the Lower Fraser River in British Columbia, Canada, and providing support to the port's real estate, planning, as well as operation teams. Nures has a Bachelor of Arts in Geography from the University of British Columbia and a graduate diploma at the master's level in environmental science from Capilano University, also in Canada. And now I turn it over to Nures to tell us about the circular economy, recycling, his journey, as well as potential careers and how to pivot to them within the field. Over to you, Nures.
Thanks a lot, Galip, and thank you for the very nice introduction. And I also want to take a second to thank a few other people on the Future Ready Initiative, Fields of the Future team. Rafik, Nadia, Hina, Henna, Murad, and others. And also all of you that have joined this session, taking time out of your busy schedules to join. So thank you for that. So as Galip mentioned, the topic for today is a circular economy. And here in front of you is the agenda. So I'm going to talk about the circular economy, my career path, my journey, talk about current and future opportunities, and then answer any questions that the audience may have. So I'm going to talk about, there's two types of, economies in this whole recycling sort of space. There's what's called a linear economy and circular economy. So I'll get into that in a second. So linear economy is basically taking materials from the earth, creating products from them and then discarding them as waste. And, you're consuming finite resources, you're generating a lot of waste, and at the same time, consequently, you're increasing greenhouse gas emissions. And some of those industries would be mining for, like, say, critical minerals, oil and gas, coal. Those are examples of a linear economy. Conversely, well, here I gave some examples right here. Coal and mining, you see some images here to the right, extracting oil from the ground. So those are the linear economy examples. And then when we talk about circular economy, it's more of a closed loop cycle. You're basically utilizing existing material instead of raw materials, and then at the same time then also reducing your greenhouse gases. So the image I have here on the screen is a simplified one, just to sort of give you the sort of conceptual image of what the circular economy is. So one of the examples I wanted to talk about in the circular economy is metal recycling. So that's obviously the industry I'm in. A couple of slides that I'm going to show you, including this one, sort of I'm going to walk you through what it's like in the metal recycling. So picture a car or an appliance. Say your appliance has failed or it's not working anymore. You want to get rid of it. I don't like your car is basically at the end of its lifespan. It would come to a facility, a metal recycling facility such as ours, or any metal recycling facility throughout the world, and it basically goes through a series of processes. And essentially what they do is they'll load the end-of-life vehicle. Prior to that, they'll basically depollute, that's the phrase we use, basically draining the vehicle of all the fluids, your gasoline, your antifreeze, your oils. Will remove the batteries. If there's mercury switches in there, So you're basically doing a depollution process of that vehicle. And then once that's done, it would go into a conveyor and go through what's called a metal shredder. And the shredder has these two hammer pins that basically shred the metal into the size of a pop can. And once that's done, that shredded material then gets loaded onto a ship, or and sent to various markets where the metal is actually remelted into new steel products. And those steel products can be used for schools, basically any type of building structure. If you look at outside, your window, the window frames themselves, some of the chairs, are also made of metal. Could also be made for various electronic components. And then I wanted to get into circular economy examples. So again, the image here is just more to give you sort of the conceptual idea of how the circular economy works in general. So you're purchasing your product, or you're buying refurbished, and then over time you're trying to basically minimize or eliminate the waste of that product, rather than just it's made from virgin material from the earth, and then basically discarded. Here you're trying to reuse everything to, like I said, minimize your waste, minimize your environmental footprint. This is an image here from in BC. We've got a very elaborate, extensive recycling program in the province. And this image here just kind of shows you some of the various types of materials that some of these facilities take. So whether it's your curbside solid waste pickup, they'll pick up the recyclables, they'll take it to a facility where it gets sorted, packaged, and then sent off to various markets to get made into different products. And we'll come into some other examples in the next few slides. So before we do that, I just want to spend a little bit of time on my career path, my education. So as Gal mentioned, I did a Bachelor of Arts in Geography from the University of British Columbia. And the reason, at the time, it wasn't, math was not my strong suit. So I took a geography course as an elective, and I just kind of fell in love with that subject matter. And when towards the end of graduating with my undergraduate degree, I was debating whether to go into urban transportation planning or environmental management. Those are two fields that were very interesting to me, and I ended up following the environmental management, environmental science stream. And that led me to Capilano University, where I did my graduate diploma in environmental science. Various courses that the program provided, toxicology, waste management, sustainability. And as part of that program, instead of a thesis, the students in the program had to do a 3 to 6 month work practicum, which was, I think, for someone in my position that had no environmental background experience whatsoever, it was invaluable. And then subsequent to that, for the last 20 plus years I've been in the industry, I've just continued to take courses as part of my journey of always wanting to learn. Whether it's leadership, waste management, or even in-house on-the-job training courses. In terms of work, so when I graduated from Capilano University, fortunately, the practicum that I did, I was fortunate to actually continue my employment with the Port Authority, and I did that for 11 years. And it was, I just really loved being in that field, because it was a blend of not just environmental management. It was also understanding land use, which kind of fell under that urban planning stream that I was interested in. So I had the best of both in career interests there. So at the Port Authority, we did a lot of environmental audits, ensuring our port tenants were complying with regulations, helping them improve their environmental footprint in terms of housekeeping, making sure that they didn't cause any soil or groundwater contamination. And then from there, went into radius recycling. And how I got into there was one of the port tenants was a family-run metal recycling business. And coincidentally, that was one of the very first sites I actually conducted an environmental audit on. And when the family was in the midst of a transition about selling their business to, at the time it was called Schnitzer Steel, they needed some help with permitting on a major project. So what started out as a contract position ended up being a full-time position. And similar to what I did at the Port Authority, I basically oversee all the aspects of the metal recycling business in Canada, within Western Canada, and basically doing environmental audits, overseeing various environmental media, soil, sediment, air, groundwater management, waste management, managing projects, infrastructure projects, putting in buildings or putting in stormwater treatment systems. Those are the things that I've had the opportunity to be part of and learn from. And then again, subsequent to that, I've been taking various courses through whether it's webinars, academic courses, and on-the-job training. So the other thing I wanted to talk about was just the career path. So how does one, transition into the circular economy space? If you're not in this industry right now, but it's something that you're interested in, and you want to pivot, there's a couple of options from my experience and from my opinion. Number one, it would be education. There are various programs and certifications out there. Your local university, college, or vocational institutes. They all offer environmental management or sustainability courses, programs. There's environmental engineering, waste management. But if you really want to sort of expedite trying to get an understanding of what circular economy is, my recommendation would be to look at some of those free online courses. MIT's OpenCourseWare has quite a few courses on circular economy, and I've got an image here that with the link at the top, and we can send this out later on, but it has a lot of courses and programs that you can take, and the courses are free. If you wanted to get a certificate, then there's a small fee you got to pay. Coursera is another online platform that offers free online courses, and that hosts courses from various reputable universities, and they cover a lot of things in circular economy, waste management, environmental engineering. So there's various avenues from the education aspect to get into the circular economy space. And this is just another image of Coursera that offers different types of courses there. So you can definitely make some time, dig into what interests you, and start your journey and pivot to that to the circular economy space. The other thing I recommend in terms of education, there's a few things here. You get your certification through some of these various organizations. I've just put a couple here that I'm familiar with. Eco Canada, for those Canadians in the audience, if you go there, they also offer a lot of courses, especially for those that are trying to get into the environmental industry. The Institute of Hazardous Materials Management, that's a really good one for if you want to get into waste management or health and safety. And the last one, which I think is also fundamental in anything that you do, whether you're an engineer, whether you're in finance, is having some project management experience, because that's going to serve you well no matter what industry you're in. The second way to get into the circular economy space is getting into the business. One might ask, well, how do you do that? It's basically kind of taking a step back and looking at how can look at the life cycle of a product. So let's take a laptop or a cell phone. What are the components that go in there? And then try to drill back or drill deeper and find out where are the gaps in those businesses, and find those gaps and try to create a niche for yourself. And some of the ones that I'll point out a few here. Battery recycling, plastics, clothes, composting, food waste, used oil, antifreeze, even tire recycling. I mean, these are all circular economy examples that many people can get into the business. And in fact, one of my colleagues, he's actually a chartered accountant. He became business partner with another person that was an engineer, and they were looking for businesses. And I asked him the question, well, how do they get into the circular economy space? And he said, part of it was by accident. They were looking for a business. They hired a business broker to find various viable businesses, and they came across a company that was taking bumpers off of vehicles. If they, for example, vehicles that got into a car accident, they would take the plastic bumpers off and recycle them. So they've enhanced that business. They found that interesting, and then they now they've enhanced it to the point where they're taking these additional hard plastics and making different products, or exporting these products and making different products. So there's different avenues to that. He also mentioned that he actually advertised on Craigslist and said, hey, this is the type of business I'm trying to get into. Does anyone have any leads? And he actually, someone contacted him, and that's how this person actually got into that circular economy space. So there's some various examples here. So battery recycling is a huge one from my perspective. You see a lot of the Teslas out there, the electric vehicles, some of the older hybrid cars like the Toyota Priuses. Some of those batteries are coming to their lifespan. You're seeing now a lot of companies developing battery recycling facilities. I think that's I think that could be a fruitful market to get into. And similarly, if you're into refurbishing computers or laptops, the lithium-ion batteries. I mean, there's different things you can do in terms of recycling. You might have seen Call to Recycle. That's a big organization that manages batteries. But essentially, getting into battery recycling I think is going to be a key current and future opportunity. Another one is plastics. We kind of talked about that. I think a lot of us are quite familiar with, lately in the media in the last little while, the impacts of microplastics on the environment, within our bodies, within, the food that we eat. It's everywhere. But one of the fundamental things I see in a gap is, there isn't the infrastructure at the manufacturing level to keep up with the demand of recycling plastics. So any of the entrepreneurs in the audience today, my recommendation would be to look at these types of businesses, knock on the doors and say, hey, can I, just get an introduction? How does one get into that business? A lot of them are very open to just, showing you sort of the fundamentals of, the recycling process. Some of it is obviously proprietary, but the point being is there's definitely opportunities if you actually do the research on it. So another one I just mentioned a few minutes ago is, computer and electronics recycling. I know a few of the colleagues, there's like one or two on the Fields of the Future team that actually have a business, I believe, in terms of refurbishing and reselling old computers. I think that's another good market to be invested in and look into there. The other one, I think, that does not probably get as much attention, but I think it's making a lot of headway in terms of being in people's minds, is clothes recycling. You can see the images here, the amount of clothes that people just, throw away. It goes to the landfill, unfortunately, and then we all kind of know there's a lot of, consequential environmental impacts when you're dumping these things into the landfills. And so you're seeing now, whether it's through donations from clothes banks or, secondhand stores, these clothes are now getting a continuous lifespan, and then some of these clothes are actually recycled. Certain textiles are taken out, and then new products are made in. So in certain cities I've traveled to, we're seeing a lot of stores selling, especially the boutique stores, selling a lot of clothing that are made from 100 recycled clothing. So I think that's another niche market I would recommend people explore as well. Food and compost waste. I mean, depending on where you live, some municipalities, some regional districts do not have a compost. What's the word I'm looking for? A compost facilities. Some of them don't have a collection system set up. But this is another one I think is a good market to get into. There's different ways of the composting, and essentially you're basically creating fertilizer for future growing additional foods. And we see a lot of that, especially in Western Canada, especially in British Columbia, where I'm from, down all the way down to California, and I'm sure there's other examples throughout the world where we see this. So that's another area that I would definitely explore. Another one would be used oil and antifreeze. So a lot of times, I'm not sure if any of you ever wonder, but if you took your car in for servicing, for me, I was very quite inquisitive. I would look at, well, where does the oil go? Where does the antifreeze go? And through even just my metal recycling, being in the metal recycling business and dealing with end of life vehicles, we see a lot of these companies, where they started out small and they became big companies, basically taking the oil, making it into a new product, taking the antifreeze, tweaking it a bit, and then reselling that antifreeze to actually various stores, whether it's the Home Depots, the Lowe's, Rona's. You're seeing a lot of these products, the Canadian Tires. So that's another example of that I would highly recommend people looking into. Again, these are also little niche markets that would be worth it. Another one, which is not aesthetically pleasing to the eye, would be concrete or asphalt recycling. Instead of mining or dredging sediment from a water course like a river for road base, you're seeing a lot more companies right now getting into recycling asphalt, recycling concrete, so that it could be used for road base or other types of needs, for building infrastructure, what have you. So that's another good example there. And another one, again, that is I think underrated is pallets, wooden pallets. Whether if you go to Costco or elsewhere, you see a lot of the products sitting on these pallets. Well, where do they go? Do they get tossed away into the landfill? You're seeing a few more companies, especially where I am when I was working for the Port Authority. Some of these are actually port tenants that actually run these types of businesses, and they recycle these pallets, they refurbish them, and then they sell them back to the businesses to be reused again. So why, is this the field of the future? A couple of things come to mind for me. I think we should have some more in-house solutions instead of relying on exports to other countries. And a lot of the times, whether you see it in the media or not, some importing countries of these products have and can shut out imports with a very short notice. So I think if we can make wherever you live, if you can make in-house solutions for these types of products, I think it goes a long way. So I think it's an area where I think we need to go towards, and I think it'd be beneficial for not just the community you live in, but just whichever country or regional district you're in. I think it's beneficial to those places as well. There's a couple of images I put here that I recommend that you check out as well. ISRI stands for the Institute of Scrap Recycling Industries, and they've got a little mini series, docu series about jobs of tomorrow. So I think Galib had put this, or will be putting this in the link in the chat. Highly recommend you take a look there to get some ideas. Might draw some inspiration from some of these videos. And if you're in Canada, again, I mentioned earlier, Eco Canada, they've got a career fair coming up next month. There's also opportunities there to explore getting into the circular economy as well. And lastly, I think we've probably heard a few of these skills to succeed, whether it was through colleagues or whatever else. I think the top 5 for me would be, being resilient. What do I mean by that? It doesn't matter what industry you're in, even if you're trying to get into this circular economy space, don't get deterred. Just keep pounding the pavement, reach out to people, connect. I'm happy to provide some advice and guidance wherever I can. So I'm happy to do that. But be resilient and don't give up. You want to put that sweat equity in there, and that's just again working hard, pounding the pavement, networking, finding a mentor, and then continuous learning. Learn. That's all I can say. Taking a course here or there, exploring different avenues. Again, the example I gave with a colleague of mine that got into the plastics business. He hired a business broker, and then he just stumbled across that. So that's another way of trying to get into this or to succeed. So I'm going to stop there, and Galib, I'm going to take any questions.
Great. Thanks, Nures. Thank you for sharing your field of the future with us today. At least I really enjoyed hearing about the breadth of the field, as well as its connection to environmental issues, a little bit about your career, and really importantly, the examples you shared with us for how you can get certification, or how you can take classes, and let's dive into a conversation on how to pivot and what other career opportunities are out there beyond scrap recycling, waste recycling, etc. I also take away, Nures, from you the fact that there's this big emphasis on climate, on environmental stewardship. There's the need to continue to reduce physical waste, which is also financial waste. And so it seems to me that we're looking at a very rapidly growing field with opportunities both for those who want to get into the technical aspects, what I call the primary components, as well as the secondary or support jobs, either as an employee or as an entrepreneur taking advantage of some of those business opportunities that you mentioned. So when you're focusing on the circular economy, I'm starting to see opportunities in clothing, manufacturing, clothing recycling, both at the source where it's made, as well as downstream after use or before sale. You talked a little bit about auto mechanics. You mentioned IT support, hardware. I think you even touched a little bit on food, and I was thinking of retail food production, those who are in that particular business, and basically all types of manufacturing in any form of energy or raw material extraction. So there are a lot of opportunities here, and I think we can unpack them a little more. Let's dive into the questions. And I'm going to start off. You mentioned a mentor. How do you go about finding mentors to help you along the way? If you have any thoughts about that.
For me personally, I think it could be you can just kind of grow into someone at work where you're currently working. If that person's a good leader, is cares about you as a person, cares about you succeeding. Those are good traits of a mentor. In terms of getting into the circular economy space, if you want, again, I think what I'm finding right now within our Jamaat, there's a lot of phenomenal environmental professionals, and I think it's a matter of just reaching out, getting in touch, and happy to be a mentor, and help those people find their way, whether it's not just in the circular economy, we're talking about it today, but just in general, provide that guidance to steer them in the direction that they're kind of interested in. So that's where I would go in terms of trying to find a mentor. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, no, I think so. And it is important to look both within the Jamaat as well as your own company, and even beyond there. There are many people who want to share their experiences to help people along the way. So for those who are wanting to pivot to this particular field, we've all had pivotal moments in our career where we need to choose between two options or choosing to switch completely, and it's a big risk. Is there an example of a pivotal moment that you've had within your career that you'd like to share?
I guess the self-fulfillment of seeing not just the sense of accomplishment of reducing our environmental footprint, not just where I work, but just within the Jamaat, we're seeing a bit more of that. So I find that quite fulfilling, being in the field that I am, especially not being a traditional field. So I think those are sort of the pivotal moments that come to mind.
Great. Yeah, it's like, even with my life, it's like this continuing theme, but pivoting from different industries doesn't necessarily meaning pivoting away from the environmental field. So I can see that it's sort of difficult to look at it as a distinct pivot. One of the audience members has asked us for some more information about clothes recycling, like you mentioned, and I'm thinking of if perhaps you can look at this from an entrepreneurial perspective, or other opportunities you can see that within the process of the clothes recycling options that people can pivot to, either as entrepreneurs or professionals. If you can think of some examples that can help out there.
Sure. I mean, obviously, I'm not in that space, but I know I have a couple of colleagues that have one idea which they're currently have a business that they established, which was I thought was quite brilliant. a lot of the department stores, the Macy's, the Bloomingdale's, wherever you buy your clothes from, a lot of the times the clothes can have small defects, missing button, extra stitching, a bit of a hole. These department stores, if those products don't sell, uh, sometimes they get, unfortunately, they were getting, thrown to the landfill or take, maybe sold to sort of a discounted stores like a Marshalls or whoever else. This colleague of mine actually found that niche and took, I guess, approached various of these businesses, whether it was the Fields, the Marshalls, took their clothes and then, had them, fixed up and then resold back to the sort of discounted stores. So again, the key message there was finding that niche market. Those clothes are continually being, the lifespan of those clothes uh, are extended. And the other aspect of that, I mean, that's the entrepreneurial side. But in terms of textiles itself, some of the, there could be some people that are passionate about fashion design. You know, look at the types of textiles that are using, like, which ones are less toxic, which ones are less detrimental to the environment, and start, trying to create niche markets in terms of clothing or other clothing products. Those are the sort of the two examples I would give on the clothing side.
Great, thanks, Nures. So moving away from clothing to sort of broader economics, you talk about one of the audience members have asked here that you've talked about the environmental side of economics, but can you touch on the financial side and how one could potentially get involved as a financial professional or with other types of finance or accounting expertise?
You mean, so if I understood the question, God, so someone that's in the financial space right now pivoting to the circular economy space, or sort of that blend?
Correct, or sort of what I think of the if I'm in the financial space and I want to move away from serving one particular type of industry. How do I pivot to this particular industry, still bringing my financial skill set, but serving a different sort of current industry that has a bigger purpose?
Yeah, that one's there's no sort of cookie cutter sort of cookie cutter industry. I mean, whether I think finance is huge in, whether that person gets into, again, metal recycling, plastics recycling, clothes recycling. There's always a need for someone that's got a very, a good finance background. Data analytics is becoming very important in the circular economy space as well. You're constantly trying to improve, processes, efficiencies. And I think with someone with finance can, help provide that guidance in terms of, minimizing costs, looking at other financial efficiencies. So to sort of pinpoint, a specific industry, it's not as prescriptive as, say, going into med school or going to accounting. So my recommendation would be whoever's in, what if you're moving from finance into the circular economy, the world's your oyster in that space. Like I said, with examples that I kind of provided, there's always a need for someone with a financial background. Does that answer that question, or?
Yeah, I think that does, and I would infer that that also applies to all of the other services, whether it's human resources, IT, procurement, etc. Those skills can be transferred, or those experiences can be transferred to really any industry that you're interested in, right?
Yeah, and the other thing, I'll use someone that's in, the finance. If they're entrepreneurial, take a step back and look at a certain product, like, and ask the question, what components, go into this product, right? And then, try to drill down, and, someone in finance or business would have that, that expertise to kind of look at certain businesses and say, this is something that I'm interested in, and then, whatever doors open, and, you follow that path. That's what my recommendation would be.
No, I think that's a great segue to a question that just came in here. Let's drill down to one particular example. This individual's asking about opportunities in medicine industry recycling or recycling in the medical supply industry. What are your thoughts on that, if you have any?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that. I will say, like, being in them again, I have to come back to the metal recycling because that's what I'm familiar with. we do see some, end of life products, even from the dentistry, dental industry. You'll see some of these pieces of equipment that come in. I think it's an untapped market, and that's something I would recommend. That's definitely a niche market to explore, 100%.
So, in terms of the broader perspective for entrepreneurs or companies that currently serve different types of industries, what do you think are some of the biggest barriers to a company or to an entrepreneur who's interested in pivoting to a circular economy for environmental benefits?
I think it could be just where to start, where to begin, and I think these types of sessions hopefully open doors for people to sort of start down that avenue. In terms of barriers, and what I mean by that is, if say you wanted to get into some sort of business that falls into this circular economy space, you know, where does one go to get financing? Where does one go, to sort of look into this business? Um, you know, I guess that would probably be the best example I can think of at this time. Would be a sort of a barrier. And it's not really a barrier, but just knowing where to look and who to talk to. I think that would be sort of the barrier.
So, when you switch gears a little bit, without getting too technical here, um, you know, I'm an environment professional, so are you. What is there a memorable moment that you've had in your career that you can look back on and say, hey, I really helped play a part in environmental issues or in climate change?
Within career or Jamaatha, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter, just as an individual in job, volunteer work, etc.
Okay, so volunteer work. I was, I, yeah, I was part of a team. That I guess started exploring and implementing recycling and composting at various events, whether it's the partnership walks, even the Jamaat condos. There's still quite a bit of work to do, but I think that for me was like a aha moment. Like, wow, we're making headway here. Rather than always bothered me when I saw stuff, at these events. We went, getting thrown into the landfill, and back in the day, up until recently, even we were using a lot of styrofoam products or plastic products, but now we're using compostable products. In the Jamaats as best we can, and at all these events. So that's on the volunteer side. That's probably um, a what I call an aha pivotal moment in terms of career. I think just what I find succeeding in a what I call a non-traditional industry. And there's been a lot of kind of a few successes where we've had some major fires at our facility. We were able to manage that successfully, and fortunately there was no environmental penalties or anything like that. So I found that a good pivotal moment there for me. So we succeeded, and we addressed everything we needed to address. So yeah, those are the couple of examples that I can give.
Great. Yeah, there was another question about volunteer opportunities, which I think you addressed, and there's lots of opportunities with different types of organizations, whether it's at a community center or place senior center that has waste output, or even organizations that are trying to deliver materials to people that always have associated waste. So thank you for that.
Yeah, the other thing I would add to that, Galib, is people that are in their current positions. What are the companies you work for? What are they doing about the environmental footprint? And if there's something that you're passionate about, start up like an environmental team, or ask that question. Hey, how are we? Be inquisitive. What are we doing with this? Where does this garbage go, or what are we doing here? That can lead to a lot of doors, to explore, and then you eventually get into that environmental, circular economy space.
Pivoting sort of from volunteering in person to volunteering online, remotely, somebody asked what kind of opportunities are available for people who want to work from home. And I know there's lots of events and organizations, including the upcoming Global Encounters Festival, that are looking for volunteers. But do you have other suggestions for people who want to do remote work within this space?
Unfortunately, I don't. I think it's kind of tough because I believe the circular economy aspect. There's a lot of there's a lot of manufacturing aspects that require some hands-on experience, and even if you get that, you can definitely then make your way in terms of doing hybrid. Like for me, I do hybrid, so I work from home, but I also travel and I also go to the office as well. So you can kind of build that. When we're first starting out, I'm not well aware of doing starting off working remotely. So a lot of these business companies that are involved in the circular economy space would probably want someone that's boots on the ground initially, and then once you kind of earned your keep, so to speak, you can probably have a sort of a hybrid model in terms of working remotely.
No, thank you for that. Um, you know, there's a question here that I'm trying to figure out how to phrase here, and it without getting too technical. There's this, we're all interested in our carbon footprints right now, right? Looking at greenhouse gas emissions, carbon footprints, sequestering, etc. And obviously, from the time a material is produced, especially something like steel and metal, from the time it's extracted to manufactured and then recycled or reinvested into another product, how do you balance, or does your organization sort of look at the carbon footprint, or have you seen that in any of the skills building or academic work that you may have looked at? So the question is really, how do you balance the carbon footprint as it moves from one part of the cycle to the other within the circular economy?
No, it's a good question. I believe like whether it's metal recycling or some of the other examples like the concrete recycling, the pallet, food compost, those aren't, you're not extracting um, virgin materials from the earth, right? You're utilizing what's already existing. So you right off the bat, you're reducing your carbon footprint, your greenhouse gas emissions. Um, in terms of other aspects, in terms of like carbon sequestering, all that stuff, that's an area I'm not well versed in. I have other colleagues, even in the Jamaat, that are more technically advanced on that, so I can't really comment anything further on that one, unfortunately. Sorry.
No problem. And I know obviously you don't speak for your organization, as neither do I. But can you see a future where within the circular economy and recycling, there's starting to actually account for carbon emissions as more and more organizations, including AKDN and AKU, have signed up for net zero in one way or another, either scope 1, 2, or 3?
Yeah, you're seeing a lot of that right now in all aspects of the circular economy. So whether it's the metal recycling, whether it's used oil, other aspects, you're seeing a lot of these companies now, especially the ones that are publicly traded. They have a responsibility, to report, what is their environmental footprint, and part of that is, what are how much GHGs and emissions did you reduce from your procedure, your processing of the product that you're dealing with.
That makes me realize that there's a huge scope for people who love numbers, the data analysts, the financial people, because accounting is accounting. And so if you're accounting for dollars versus carbon emissions, it's a very transferable skill set, right, into any part of the environmental analysis field and climate change and greenhouse gas emissions. It's huge.
Huge, and I think data. I think the big one is data analytics. I'm not well versed in that, but I know we're seeing a lot more data analytic positions being created for these sort of circular economy businesses.
One other question, and again, if there are any other questions, please do put them in the Q&A box. Let's talk specifically about dry cleaners. Obviously, dry cleaners, it's an expensive business. Environmental regulations are huge and obviously depend on the state or locality that you live in, as well as the national or federal requirements. And there's also a lot of criticism that it's not very environmentally friendly, and yet the customers continue to bring their clothes, like me, to the dry cleaners. Every time I drop off my clothes, I do a calculation in my head. I'm like, wait, am I doing the right thing from an environmental perspective? So how can dry cleaners not only, reduce their costs, which you may not know about, but also starting to think about taking advantage of the circular economy. I just think of the number of hangers and plastic sheeting that comes out, and I bring it home. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, not well. I mean, like you, I take, our family takes stuff to the dry cleaners as well. But in terms of, the chemicals and stuff, we're seeing a few more, environmentally friendly products. How environmentally friendly, I'm not, I haven't done the research on that yet. But in terms of the latter point you made about the hangers and the plastics, I think there's a good opportunity for those that are involved in the dry cleaning business to sort of establish some sort of recycling program or mechanism, and whether it's recycling the hangers, you know maybe tell the customer, hey, if you bring it back, I can give you a discount, or if they recover that, they can resell it back to the manufacturer. Even the plastic sheeting, even the hangers with the paper over it, right, or the cardboard to hold a suit jacket. There's different opportunities there. That's probably the extent that I of my knowledge on, in terms of an opportunity there.
And so those all sound like really good examples of this idea of circular economy is take the waste and turn it into something that's not only less harmful for the environment, but also financially there could be a cost savings or a associated cost, reduce your cost of disposal, right? Whether it's at the individual level or the community or the organization. Someone asked about sustainable fashion. I know it's become a buzzword. Fashion using recycled material. Is that also an example of circular economy? And do you have any ideas for the creative-minded people within our audience?
Yeah, I think again, I'm not really well versed in the fashion industry, of course, or even in the clothes industry. There actually, later on, there's a book out there, an author that's well versed in these types of things, the circular economy. His name is Adam Minter. He wrote a book, and I'll send this out later on. But there's definitely a growth opportunity. You're seeing a lot more, you know, people take notice. Say, hey, what are we doing? What are we putting into the clothes that we create? What kind of textiles are we making? All the way to where this stuff. Where are these things manufactured? How are the workers that are making these products? How are they treated? There's an environmental, social aspect associated with that. So are they where they work, or how these things are mass produced? What is their environmental footprint? So you can really drill down and trying to see how those products are made. But you are definitely seeing a lot of questions being asked about the fashion industry, about their waste, about how their clothes are made. And that's definitely an opportunity to try to get into the sustainable stuff, looking at the type of textiles, which is less toxic, which is more recyclable. There's definitely opportunities there.
No, thank you. So looking back at the demographics at the beginning, there's about 25% of the audience here that are either high school students, undergraduate students, that's the majority, or graduate PhD students. And you've been in all three of those positions in the past. So if you were sitting in the audience as one of those today, listening to Nures talk about circular economy, is there something specific that you can think of that, oh, I should probably explore this, or how do I, this is how I can probably position myself to get a job within this field as soon as I graduate?
Yeah, I think the some of the slides that I in my presentation about like MIT courseware or Coursera, they've got some really good programs. I'm sure also the other reputable universities have these sustainability programs, and a lot of them are professional development. So you're not spending 2 or 3 years, pivoting, especially because it can be quite costly, as we know, post-secondary education can be. So, but you're seeing a lot of these educational institutions produce these sort of expedited programs, whether it's just professional development, they're free, whether it's one course or two, and going back. So if I was a student, I was interested in a course, if I went into that MIT openware website or Coursera, and I took a course, I would reach out to the instructor and say, hey, how does one get involved in this? And that's going to open up some doors, right? It's going to lead you to the path. It's all about, no different than, I guess, if you're in high school or in university or post-secondary and you're doing, a research, whether it's your dissertation or your thesis or a project, you got to do a lot of research, right? So this would be one avenue or one example of doing that research. So to recap, I would say, yeah, look at some of those courses, uh, you know, see if you can find the instructor's name, get in touch with them. They're quite responsive, and they can provide you more leads, more contacts, more resources, and then continue down that path of trying to find what you're looking for.
No, yeah, thank you for that. And you also mentioned getting your foot in the door. So you've pivoted from undergraduate, you made that career decision about which direction you wanted to go, urban planning or something else. You did your master's, you worked for the port, and now with Radius. Is there a specific point where you thought you can look back and say, oh, here's how I got my foot in the door? Could be any of the doors. And then how do you keep your momentum going once you've got your foot in the door?
So there's probably two aspects of that. I think the first one is, part of it's just, hard work, pounding the pavement, and it's luck. And I'll give you the example. So when I came out of the master's program, again, no environmental work experience whatsoever, and I didn't know what the Port Authority was called. There was one, the Port Authorities in Vancouver actually amalgamated. So I was actually, prior to amalgamation, the organization was called the Fraser River Harbor Commission. I had no clue, living even in Vancouver, that there was this organization existed. We always knew about the Vancouver Port Authority, but long story short, my boss, who I consider a mentor, she just took a chance on me. I think she just liked, my work ethic. She just took a chance. So that may not be the best example, but it's a real example where, if you show your work ethic, you're inquisitive, that, and if you've got a good, person that you're reporting to, they'll see that. That's one way of getting the foot in the door. The second one, I think, is huge. And just within, again, our Jamaat, I am just blown away, about the environmental professionals, and God's, I will admit, like I had, we just crossed paths for this session, but reading your bio, I'm impressed. So my point is, there are several, and it's very self-fulfilling to see a lot of people in the Jamaat that are currently in the environmental space. So my advice would be, reach out to them. We're all here to help. And we may not have all the answers, but we can definitely point you in the right direction so that you're not spinning your wheels.
No, thank you. I appreciate that acknowledgement. And I did put both your and my LinkedIn profile links in the chat earlier. I just do request, if you reach out, please send a message saying you saw us on Field of the Future so that we don't ignore the message. Nures, I don't have any other questions, but I do want to offer you the opportunity to have some closing thoughts or comments, putting yourself in the minds of some of our audience here who are, we have a large number of professionals, mid-career professionals, who have joined to learn something and be interested in this space. So any final thoughts or comments from you?
Yeah, I'll just reiterate what I said throughout the presentation and through our Q&A. Check out some of those programs. Check out the courses. That's probably step one. Step two would be, reach out to the environmental professionals within our Jamaat. Let's have that discussion. There are definitely a lot of resources out there that can help guide you to where you want to go. I think, and again, I can't emphasize that enough. I think like I said, I'm very happy to see a lot of our global Jamaat involved in the environmental space that can provide some leads for those that are trying to pivot from the current careers to this space.
Yeah, and I would just add to that the fact that the opportunities are incredible. There are tons of areas, not only across all of the fields, whether it's finance, accounting, or anything else, but also the fact that there is a opportunity just in the space of creativity, right? The fact that you have whether it's fashion designing or art or reusing palettes. The fact that we started off this session by talking about the existence of palettes at the museum. I think those are all just examples of the terrific creativity that can exist across this field.
And I think the one thing I will add to that, Galib, is what I may have mentioned earlier. Take a step back and look at certain products and ask yourself, okay, what was the journey of how that product came to fruition, right? Do the research, and I think you'll find some niches in there, or to sort of get into that space. The other one, like I mentioned, is looking at various businesses. Perhaps if there's people that have contacts with business brokers, say I'm looking for this type of business, or just cold call. Knock on the door and say, hey, I'm interested in getting into this circular economy space. Um, you know, can you provide some guidance, or can you answer a few questions for me? The other one I mentioned earlier is the ISRI.org, Institute of Scrap Recycling Industries. That's a really good resource just for someone that's trying to pivot into that space. It's going to give you circular economy is so broad, but I think that's a good step where to start, and as another avenue. And again, reach out to us if you have any questions. I'm sure Galib and I we'll definitely carve out some time. But just if we don't respond right away, it's not we're ignoring you. We're just we'll get to it as soon as we can. Not in a week's time, but sooner rather than later. But yeah, so thank you for that.
Great. Thank you, everybody, and have a good rest of the day or evening or night, depending on your time zone.